Good morning, Carol Johnson.
Good morning. Good morning, Bob Ponce. How are you today?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I can't wait to get
Hmm.
out there. Well, I'm not going out
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
I'll have to
Mm-mm-mm.
hold up. Well, we didn't get much
So,
snow,
okay,
did we?
got a few flakes.
Yeah,
Nothing to be concerned about. Nothing to get your boots dirty about, which is
yeah.
I'm
Can't
fine with
dust
that.
off your sleds.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
like snow.
All right, so COVID 21. Do we call it COVID 21 now?
Well,
I guess we should call it COVID
yeah,
21 because it's it's
yeah,
it's it's mutating, so it's not really the same as the COVID-19.
right.
So we had some good news in New York State in that the governor announced yesterday that the transmission rate is below one, which means that the rate of spread is slowing, which means that we might start to see these numbers come down after the holidays, which is what we all sorely need. Um, and of course, the bad news is that the death toll nationwide has continued to climb. Last week, of course, we talked about breaking the 400,000 mark, and now we're up to 425,000, just like that. So,
Mm,
losing an average of 3,500 to 4,000 people a day.
a day.
Just to put it in perspective, 20 years ago, this coming September, was 9/11, and we lost, what did we lose? Maybe 3,000, 3,500 people in that
Yeah,
day, and the whole country, um, we went into a state of shock. And now we are losing that amount of people every day and have done it every day for the last, I don't know how many days. And you know, just seems a sense that people are just accepting that as normal. And I just don't think we can do that. We haven't properly recognized or grieved or even addressed the fact that this is still such an ongoing health emergency. So, as we talk about what happens here in New York, let's talk about some of the problems that we've continued to see in terms of vaccine distribution here in New York.
no, but what you just said, it's interesting. That was a terrorist attack, and people went into shock. The whole world went into mourning over that. And this is a homegrown terrorist attack. You know, no
Mm-hmm.
response. All of these people dead, more people dying in one day than all those that died on that one day in 9/11. More people are dying every day here across the states. And people are not in shock. They're sort of
Mm-hmm.
just taking it in stride. And that's pretty interesting. I'm not understanding why that is. That even now
Mm-hmm.
it's like people are still like, oh well, it's just something that happens. It's preventable. That wasn't preventable from our end. There was nothing we could do.
Mm-hmm.
But this spread is preventable. And for some reason, people have not found shock value in it. And that just disturbs
Yeah.
me.
So let's talk about what's going on here in New York. Um, there's an article in the Gothamist, as you see the title. The early data shows stark racial disparity in New York City vaccine distribution. Then the city stopped releasing it. And this this sounds so familiar because it's the same thing we dealt with the testing prior to even getting the vaccine distribution. We've been talking for months and months and months about the disparity in testing in our neighborhoods, and how in the early days we had more data being distributed, and then the city stopped releasing it. And now we're having the same thing where we go into this vaccine distribution, where the early data shows this disparity in vaccine distribution, even as we know that our neighborhoods were the hardest hit. And so the idea that our neighborhoods would not be first in line for distribution just made common sense, because we were the neighborhoods that had the the worst of the worst from it. And so there just seems to be some common sense missing. Um, and then the city's response always seems to be, okay, if we just don't put the data out there, maybe the problem will go away. And that's obviously not working.
Right. Because even now, if I don't want to deal with a health center that, for all those people in our neighborhoods that don't have insurance, and there are, well,
Hmm.
two medical centers here that people can go to. The thing is that
Hmm.
insurance, people don't want to see bills popping up in their mailbox. They apply for
Hmm.
Medicaid to cover it. They don't want to know if Medicaid is not going to cover it, because there are people with
Hmm.
Medicaid that during this
Hmm.
um this really botched response, people are getting kicked off. They're
Hmm.
getting kicked off of Medicaid. They're getting kicked off of Social Security. All types of glitches are in the systems. So people don't want
Hmm.
to open up their mailboxes and see a bill when they're struggling to feed their families and pay for their
Hmm.
necessities, rent, basically their utilities,
Hmm.
keeping lights on. And
Hmm.
from where I am in East Harlem, outside of Metropolitan Hospital, the closest place for me to go and not have to worry about um, anybody billing me is like 168th Street and Amsterdam Avenue.
Hmm.
I'm not even sure if 138th Street and Fifth Avenue is open anymore, because when the site's open, they're not put in the website that everyone is told to go to. These places still
Hmm.
remain mysteriously absent. However, I see more and more private medical centers, urgent care centers opening in my neighborhood. From the day they opened, they've remained open. Those are the only places outside of Metropolitan that have remained consistent, and more of them are
Hmm.
popping up. But yet, you keep
Hmm.
saying the testing is free, the vaccine is free, everything is free, 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 free. Just go in, get tested, forget the vaccination because there's none to be had. And yet, all of these centers that's charging people keep mysteriously appearing. But the free sites, gotta hunt them down. They're not listed.
Hmm.
Somebody may call me or send me a flyer. This place is open. That's how we're finding out that these places are open. That's not acceptable.
Last night they had the first mayoral debate online. They had 10 candidates. And the focus of this particular one was the health inequities, particularly around COVID 19. And so the one common denominator that's that all the candidates knew about the problems, and the problems we've been talking about, the problems in lack of equity in testing, lack of equity in distribution, lack of clear information on the websites, surprise billing, as you just talked about. So it to me, it's just a little ridiculous that everybody knows the problems, but no one is, where is the activity towards solutions? Um, this is our 44th um, broadcast. We've been doing weekly broadcasts since, I guess it was March or April. I don't even know when. Um, and we continue to talk about these same problems. And where is the movement toward actually getting some solutions? We still continue to see, mayor's office and governor's office that don't coordinate, different information between what the state is giving us and what the city is giving us, different information between different silos between city agencies. And it's just mind-boggling at this stage in this health emergency that we don't have a coordinated response. And the good news that we've changed administrations in Washington, um, it also means we can't blame it on Trump anymore.
Right.
So our 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 city and state officials have got to get it together anymore, and they can no longer point to Washington and say that there's the problem when we have seen. We can't blame the Trump administration for issues in terms of not being able to get proper information on the website. You can't blame the Trump administration for this mess in terms of vaccine distribution, which happens locally. Um, I don't even know what more to say.
I don't either. I know that in every response, from FEMA to NISM, New York City Emergency Management, who handle all
Hmm.
emergencies, um, they will all tell you that the best assistance you can get in any emergency comes from the community level. It's the community
Hmm.
who steps out and takes care of the people, be it a flood, a fire, whatever the case may be. It's the community who go and find, um, lightly used clothes and take them to the shelter and take canned goods and foods and
Hmm.
different things for people. It's not the city or the government that's
Hmm.
doing that. And these are the people, when they said these people need this, they need cleaning supplies, they need um, non perishable foods. It's the community that meets that need. And that's the same thing that's
Hmm.
happening here. It is the community that can help you find the locations. But people, our government still insist on being pig-headed. They want to make all the decisions no matter how poor they are, no matter how the poorest people continue to be left out. We know where everything is, but you're not paying attention. You
Hmm.
want to make all the decisions. I can't go to Brooklyn and tell you
Hmm.
and name 10 places which would be perfect for vaccine distribution. But you want to come into our neighborhoods where
Hmm.
we've lived all our lives and tell us the perfect spots. And
Hmm.
it's a poor response at best, that you don't use people who have been working all these years, decades, scores, in situations like this,
Hmm.
in emergency situations.
Hmm.
They respond immediately, but you don't want to hear from us. And so that's why this
Hmm.
thing continues to be poor, because they're still separating it by city and state, the same way they did with the testing sites. When people were going to the testing sites, they didn't even know what test they were going for, whether they were getting the COVID test or the antibody test. If it was a government state, it
Hmm.
was antibody. Nobody knew that. So they're doing the same thing now with the distribution. Which one are you getting? Well, if it's the
Hmm.
government, it's Moderna. If it's the city, it's Pfizer. I mean, we should all have this information. We should all have the ingredients so that we can make wise
Hmm.
choices as to which one we want to get and where we can go to get it. And if it's free, then cut the crap and make it free and make available places for people to get it free. So when we say that we're
Hmm.
still in the same phase, like the first phases of this pandemic, in our areas, we're still in the first phases. It's just inexcusable that people are still fighting to find a place to be tested. Absolutely inexcusable.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so crazy, crazy. Um,
I don't know where
and
we're
I'm
going to go
just
from
looking
here.
at well, I don't know either, but we have to get better from our agencies and elected officials. They have to do better. There's just no two ways about it. Um, this
I think what's,
you know
I think, go ahead. Well,
oh,
I
it's
think
just
one of the problems is, I think one of the problems is when you're in
mhm,
downtime, while you're fighting to find the vaccines, this is the time when you should be designating locations. It's like they designate a location, they change it, and then everything kind of just stops. This is when you should be doing all that other stuff
mhm,
to prep when you actually get it. But
mhm,
no, they're going to wait until they get it. Then they're going to start deciding where we're going to distribute it, which is just so backwards. There's so many things that you should be doing in the
mhm,
downtime so that when it happens, it can roll out
mhm,
smoothly. But no, I mean,
mhm,
hundreds of places are being offered, and you're just like, no, we're not taking any of your suggestions. We'll figure it out. Well, you don't have any vaccine. You should be figuring out now. When we get it, XYZ places will be used. No, everybody just sitting back, chilling, taking the wait and see approach. And then it's going to come and they're going to get it. And then they're going to start throwing out places that nobody knows about.
mhm.
That's the way this whole
And
thing
this,
has gone.
right, especially when you talk about what has occurred with these mega sites, and they started with saying, these are the places we're going to have mega sites, and then they find that they don't have the supply, and then they're slowing down the mega sites, and it's just nothing but confusion. And you know, one of the things that we've learned over the last few years is that one of the key things about emergency situations is that you have to have a plan, and that you can't have confusion, because confusion and panic leads to loss of life. And yet here we are with all the resources, and all the departments and all the so-called preparation, that we're still in a state that there's mass confusion over who is going to get the vaccine, um, when the vaccine is available, where the vaccine is available. So the who, when, and the where, nobody can get a straight answer. We still continue to see these stories of disparity, where somehow or another people who are not in the so-called priority list of people who are supposed to get vaccinated are already vaccinated. So this is a mess.
Yeah, that's interesting because I keep hearing from people, did you get yours? I got mine. I'm like, how'd you get yours? You're like 45 years. There's nothing years old. There's nothing wrong with you. Because um,
Hmm.
underlying illnesses was once taken off the table again. I don't know. They go back and forth so much. I don't know if they put it back on the table, but I know they were on there for
Hmm.
like 24 hours, and the question arose about 65 and underlying illnesses should go hand in hand. But they were snatched back off. So now these
Hmm.
people are coming up and they're like, oh, I got the vaccine. And you fall in none of those categories. None of the prioritized
Hmm.
categories, and you're under 45 years old. How did that happen? Did you pay for it? No. So, with everything, every emergency, there are people who can manage to pay their way into the recovery effort,
Hmm.
you know, every
and,
place.
and
Because,
and watch and see how these same people. will not only get their first shot, but they'll get their second shot like that. And meanwhile,
Hmm.
there's this confusion about people who've had the first shot and whether they're able to get the second shot properly. And the idea, you see some of these agencies waffling back and forth and saying, okay, well, we're not going to give the second shots out so we can give more of the first shots to more people. And this is a recipe for disaster, because without the second shot, you don't have the built up immunity. And we've already seen cases where people have had the first shot, but you only have partial immunity. And therefore, the second shot comes along, and or the people don't make it to the second shot. People have contracted COVID and died because they didn't get to the second shot. So we have to continue to talk about these issues, and we need to see some solutions.
Well, remember, we also have people that got the second shot and got COVID because they couldn't get
Hmm.
they didn't have that time, that 2 weeks to 4 month grace period for it to build in the system. So they were infected within a
Hmm.
week after getting the second shot. So that further proves
Hmm.
how important that is. And the same way now you're trying
Hmm.
to um, release the second shots so that they can be given to people as first shots. There are people today who's ready to get their second shot tomorrow, the next day,
Hmm.
who are ready to get their second shot. And those appointments have already been
Hmm.
canceled. So now when you do
Hmm.
things like that and it's already kind of weird, now what happens? Are you going to lose track of those people? You know, I
Hmm.
mean, will you lose track of those people? Because you're going to start making appointments for other people to get the first shot, and this people that's waiting for the second shot. If somebody can get the second shot and still get infected 1 week after they get the second shot, the immunity value that those people get with the first shot is going to lessen, and it may put them way back
Hmm.
at um at the first stage. It may take them all the way back
Hmm.
to ground zero, where they may have to end up getting three injections. Who knows?
Hmm. And we
And that's
got we
something that
got
needs to
a
be
note
considered.
from Got a note from Mark McPhee. The vaccine people is not a pass to party and be irresponsible. You have to be prepared for you and family in case there is a shutdown, and that's absolutely true. That people think that the vaccine means that I don't have to worry about social distancing and protocols. It doesn't mean that at all, because number one, you can still, you still may be able to spread it even if you have the protection. And two, as we've seen, uh, your full immunity doesn't come until a week to 2 weeks after the second shot. And so you've got to get the first shot in to start your body on this process. But if you're not getting the second shot, then you don't have full immunity.
And they're not really
And
sure either after the second shot how long that immunity lasts. So there's still a
hmm
question. Is it going to be like a flu shot that you have to take every year? There's a lot of questions out there.
hmm
And so that's the reason why everything that we were told to do, mask, and now they're saying double mask, washing of hands,
hmm
socially distancing, all those things must remain in place. That is not going to change. Do not get it twisted. Even if you had the second shot, don't get it twisted. You still have to do this because there's no proof
hmm
positive that even after you get that second shot and you go through that period for you to get the full immunity, how long will it last? These are questions that are still being asked. These are still situations
hmm
that's being worked out in laboratories. And so you must maintain all of the precautions that we've been talking about, that everyone's been talking about since this thing began. You can't drop
hmm
that.
Absolutely. I want to talk about another story, which just um, reminds us that there's just a global problem in terms of access. And one of these is the fact that there's a story about AstraZeneca in South Africa charging more than double what Europeans pay for COVID-19 vaccine. And this is just a reminder that, you know,
Mm.
the vaccine is here to help solve this major medical problem, but it's also a business, and sometimes it's a dirty business. Because is there any reason why um, African countries should be paying double the amount of money that Europeans are paying for the vaccine? And this has been a problem. You know, we think about the problems we have locally, but this is a world problem, and you're going to see again the racial disparity that African countries, Caribbean countries, countries where black and brown people are prevalent, you're going to see, continue to see this type of disparity where there's going to be price gouging and overcharging. And while we're focused on our problems at home, we need to be cognizant that this is a global issue in terms of this vaccine distribution, who gets it, who pays for it. Um, we're just seeing the same old thing.
Hey, money is always talked, so that's
Hmm.
why you said something pertinent, really pertinent, when you said there's still people that will get first and second shots. They'll get them today. They'll be getting first shots. They'll get them tomorrow, next week, the week after. They've got vaccines. So chosen people are going to get those vaccines, and who knows how much they're
Hmm.
paying for them. But just the fact that whenever you have something like this, it's never guarded. It's never guarded. There's always dirty working, dirty hands working in things. So they can always get access to certain things and no one else
Hmm.
knows about.
You know,
And so,
you shared with me yesterday an article from the New York Times that basically the article was saying that vaccines alone are not going to be enough for us to stop this. That we have to continue to have social distancing protocols, and and this is really what we've been saying for the last 9 months as well. I still think it's a travesty that there's still no public health campaign about boosting your immune system, even if it was just vitamin D, which is one thing that has been proven time and time again is a helpful defense against COVID. The fact that we haven't heard any of our health officials, you know, echo the data that is there's mountains of data about vitamin D and COVID-19. There's obviously data about vitamin C, about zinc, about melatonin, all these things that we've talked about, and we didn't make them up. We cited studies after studies after studies about these things and never hearing anything other than the vaccine rollout. And the vaccine rollout is a mess. So, and the truth be told, Dr. Fauci said this, as the vaccine started rolling out, that it was going to take several months to get this thing out. That it wouldn't be till May or June that they would start to reach the targets they have for getting the vaccine to everyone. And so the fact that every other solution is ignored but vaccines is another travesty of our health system. Um, we talked about ivermectin, and I want to talk about this a little bit and the controversy around this particular drug. And the problem is that this drug has found to be effective against COVID-19, and there is research. Here's an article on Medscape talking about the controversy over ivermectin. And um, in August, the National Institute of Health had basically said that it was not good against COVID-19, and then there have been this group of doctors called the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance that they've been gathering information since the beginning of the pandemic, looking at all of the drugs that might be effective, and they looked at all the ones. They looked at remdesivir and hydrochloroquine, and ivermectin was the one they found that was the most effective. And they talked about this, and then they put out protocols for doctors. And so they have been fighting to get more people to look at it. And there's more and more evidence every day that ivermectin is effective in advance of it as well as in all three phases of the drug. So on January 6th of this year, the National Institute of Health, they dropped their recommendation against using it, but instead of recommending it, they just went to that neutral position where they say they can't recommend for or against its use, but physicians can make the decision. So it's lukewarm, but a lot of physicians just take that to mean okay, it doesn't work. Where in fact there's evidence that it works. There was an incident in upstate New York where a woman who was critically ill with COVID-19. She got her doctors to start using ivermectin, and she was having very, very good results as a result of it. And then what happened was the hospital that she was in, they stopped administering it and her condition got worse. So her family actually sued and they got a
Right.
judge to give an order requiring them to continue it. And they started her back on the ivermectin, and she um, got better and is in recovery. And so, you're seeing these situations where people have to fight just to get their doctors to administer it. Now, and this is a drug that has been used safely for years. It actually won a Nobel Peace Prize for its use in I can't forget it's used for other things, but the fact is that they found it to be effective, and there is not as many studies on it as they want. But the point I think we're at is that when we've got a pandemic where we've already had 400,000 deaths, and we should before we reach the end of February, we will probably likely pass the half a million mark, um, that every tool that shows effectiveness should be used. And again, this is not an anti-vax statement. And one of the problems that the doctors who have been advocating for ivermectin have had is that they have these media who erroneously label them anti-vaxxers. All the doctors who have talked about this still continue to advocate the rollout of vaccines as the way to ultimately stop this. But what they've said, which makes common sense, is that if you have a drug that is effective, why not use this to slow the rate of people coming down with
Transmission.
it when it showed they've used it. Yeah, they've showed it to be effective for health workers have used it, and they've seen some astounding results that the health workers who used it and took it in advance so that they would have protection against COVID-19 would take it and they didn't come down with it. And you can see I believe their website is flccc.org, where people can go and they can read the track record for themselves. And so I will always want to be able to give people that information. Let me just double check that is. Now, let me find the actual information so we can put it on the screen. But we want people to always be able to get their own information. Don't take our word for it. Do your own homework. Okay, COVID-19criticalcare.com has all their information. I'll put that on the screen. Um, so, once again, we just continue to see people not following all the information that's available. And we need better. We need better.
It makes sense. Um, Although there's a lot of people who are woke, it makes sense. There's a lot of confusion out there, but it makes sense why people are feeling so many different ways about this. Your
Hmm.
administrations have got to come straight and give
Yep.
the information up as it should be given up on a regular
Hmm.
basis. My fight with the city agencies has still consistently been, you have to fight harder than the conspiracy theorists. You have to put out more
Hmm.
information, or as much information that other people are putting out, to counter this. When you allow people
Hmm.
to who are already afraid, when you find people who are already skeptical, and you allow them for months and months and months to absorb a lot of negative information, it's much easier to learn something than to unlearn it. And so they've already
Hmm.
attached themselves to this thinking, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether it's sane, whether it's insane. They've attached themselves to that thinking.
Hmm.
Our
Hmm.
government, our city, they need to fight it harder than all the people on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok or whatever else is out there.
Hmm.
But that's not happening.
Hmm.
They're not countering it. You let people absorb
Hmm.
insanity for months, and then you come along and say, well, this is the way it really is. No, no, they're not buying that. They're not buying that because they're hearing
Hmm.
too much. It's another way. When they talk about this vaccine, and
Hmm.
this, I know you've heard it over and over again. Well, I don't understand how they can't cure cancer, they can't cure this, and they can't cure that. But all of a sudden, they came with a vaccine so fast. That's why I can't trust it. Why are you not countering that? Had you not put information out there a long time ago, you would not have to waste your time coming up with all of these catchphrases. Everything is a catchphrase. Vaccine hesitancy. Who the heck cares about that? The fact of the matter is,
Hmm.
people are scared, and you failed in your responsibility to effectively transfer information to people. At least give them things to think about. Give them some real websites like you get here, where you can go and get real information and make a decision for yourself. We can't even get websites with the
Hmm.
daggone sites on it and testing sites on it. So, I mean, come on. Those people are constantly
Hmm.
punching. But you got to remember, too, the coronavirus, or know that the coronavirus has been around since the 60s. And so this is not something new that
Hmm.
they're fighting. Vaccines, they've been working on vaccines since then to counter it when it hits.
Hmm.
And so the
Hmm.
basic principle of the vaccine has been around. This this um this disease morphs. It keeps changing. So now we have the vaccine along with other questions. Is it going to be effective with the different mutations? We don't know,
Hmm.
but they don't know. But you
Right.
got to do your own
Hmm.
homework. But I still got to blame
Hmm.
the city and the state for not, every time somebody throws something out there, because you have people that you pay to watch what's on social media. And they're sitting there, just
Hmm.
drinking the tea and eating popcorn, but you're not getting it to your bosses. What's being said out there? You
Hmm.
need to be hitting 1-2 punches right up against everything negative that's going on out there. And now
Hmm.
that this has been
Hmm.
so sketchy over this time, and when people consistently see your failure, if they don't trust you, that's not on them, that's on you. When people say, when the government is saying, well, you really need to get the vaccine. No, the reason people don't want it, that's not on them, that's on you. You have not pushed the point
Hmm.
home. And here we are, and you're still not pushing the point home. You're still keeping things under. You know this thing has mutated. You're still not talking about that. You're still not pushing the fact that people need to now double mask. If you have a N95, a real N95, not a KN95, a real N95 mask, they say those are the ones that's most protective. Anything else, you
Mm-hmm.
need to be putting on double masks. You need to be putting coffee filters inside of those masks. You need a double protection.
Mm-hmm.
We are not fearful of giving you the truths that we know. They may be. But these are things that people need to know. You don't wait until things just get completely crazy, start throwing things out, and people don't have the ability to hear at that point.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what to believe because they heard more from those sources than they've heard from your sources. And you're in charge. Act like leaders. Stop hiding stuff. Stop making people fight for real information. It's coming from your end. It's all going to fall on you guys. I'm getting off my soapbox.
And that's why we have Carol Johnson.
You know what I mean? Come on now.
You don't
Let's
want the
just stop
truth.
the
You can't
madness.
handle the truth.
It's just so evident. It is so evident. But again,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a community worker. You don't want to hear anything from me.
Mm-hmm.
Never want to hear from the community.
Mm-hmm.
The community knows what's going on. We speak to the people. We got our
Mm-hmm.
boots on the ground. We're talking to people. People are calling us
Mm-hmm.
on a regular basis, letting us know what's going on. We're going out. I'm hopping in my scooter. I'm going out there to see what's going on. And I find what they say to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's addressed,
Mm-hmm.
you get that's a very good question, but we don't have the answer. Well, you need to start finding some answers.
That just drives me crazy. It's like, we never thought of that. And it's like you've got a whole staff of people who are paid to think of this. Why are you looking to us for you know the questions? Everybody knows the questions, and that's what I found out when I watched the mayoral debate yesterday. Is that you had 10 candidates. You had Eric Adams, Scott Stringer, Maya Wiley, Catherine Garcia, Ray McGuire. There were Andrew Yang. Everybody knew the problems. Everything that we've talked about was talked about by all these mayoral candidates. So it's not a secret to anyone that these are problems, and yet we're still not seeing appropriate action on the solution. And that is the biggest head scratcher, that we're still in the midst of this. We're 10 months into this thing, going on 11 and 12, and we're not seeing the types of solutions. And we're seeing too much patting themselves on the back because we flattened the curve back in the spring and summer, but we didn't prepare adequately for the fall and winter.
Right.
And that just makes no sense at all.
It never makes
So
sense.
I want to wrap up. Yeah,
No, I was just saying it never makes sense. But to really understand, if you
yeah.
live in black and brown indigenous communities, and you don't understand what racial inequities and inequalities are, look up redlining. Look up
Hmm.
redlining, REGLINING. Look that up, and you will see
Right.
if your
That's.
area is an area that's always being left out. It will tell you exactly why. So
Hmm.
these are nothing. These things are
We could
not
call this
new.
a medical redlining.
Yeah, this is
You know,
not new.
medical
And
redlining
yeah,
at
and it
all.
happens with everything: food, housing, um, jobs, medical insurance. It happens across the board. Everything that people say is the American dream, the ability to achieve the American dream. All the things that people come from other countries, they come here and they can achieve the American dream, and yet we're here over 400 years and we still can't get a hold of the dream that people can come from anywhere over the world and achieve. Look up redlining. Look up why your area is. Look up why there's no healthy food. Look up why there's no medical centers. Look those things up and you will see why you are where you are. And that's the reason why you have to fight for your life harder than anybody else. You got to wake up. You got to wake up and fight for your life and fight for your family and know. First, you need to know why you're in the situation. You can't battle a fight that you don't know and you don't know what the fight is over. You're just sitting back saying, why are they not taking care of us? Well, that's where community agencies come
Hmm.
together. You got to get together and fight. We don't need Stacey Abrams in everything. Everybody's looking for another Stacey Abrams. The book that I read years ago that said a hero is ain't nothing but a sandwich. She was a hero. But there's heroes right in your
Hmm.
community. You can be the hero. You pull people together and say, we're entitled to get the same thing that everybody else can get, but know why you're in the trenches. Know why you're in those areas. Know why all of us are always in donuts. We're in flood zones. We're always the last zones that's ever dealt with. Know why. Connect with your community agencies and your community boards. Know why. Get in the fight. Stop sitting back waiting for somebody else to fight your battle. Just like I'm not sitting back waiting for anybody to fight and pay my rent. Stop sitting back and waiting for other people to fight your battle. Your life, your children's lives, and your future generations depend on that. East Harlem is in a flood zone. You can go to the Gothamist, the newspaper, you can go to the Patch, and you can see how $1 million that was designated to fix our area is sitting, being held back. The money just disappeared. Just disappeared. And here we are still in this situation. The water level is still rising on us. And the comment was actually made from the administration that we didn't get hard hit during Sandy. Yes, the heck we were. And all that money and all those meetings I was sitting in where they was talking about, I wondered, why did it all of a sudden stop? No more meetings.
Hmm.
Well, it's been uncovered. The money is still there, but the work ceased. Why would that happen? Because right now they're building a promenade up on First Avenue. You see construction going on all around the city. Why have you not given us this protection? And so that's what redlining is. There's never protection put over your area, and you need to know why. And when you see it, you won't question anymore why you can't find a testing site, why you can't get the vaccination, why you can't get decent health care and decent food. When you find that out for yourself, you need to connect with your agencies in your community and fight back. The fight is yours. We can't sit back and let anybody else do it anymore. Okay,
There it
I
is.
promise now
So
I'm off my
I want.
soapbox.
All right, so I'm gonna end up with a story that about the MTA and what they've done to honor the MTA employees who died from COVID. And so they've done installations in over 107 stations where they've got pictures of the employees that have passed, and they also have an online tribute to them as well. So I thought what we would do to end our show is to play that online tribute and let that take us out. So I'll say our goodbyes now. This has been uh, our weekly COVID update. And we'll be back next week and we'll continue to bring you the information and share you the information and the perspective that you may not be getting from other places to keep you informed so that you can make your proper decisions. And we think that we applaud the MTA for taking the time to talk about what's happened with their employees, and just to, give people an opportunity to respond and grieve. So this has been us for our COVID-19, and we'll see you next week.
Take care. Stay safe.